Continuing chapter 3, page 48, buyer as the principal. We use a written employment contract with the buyer, that exclusive buyer's agency agreement. The payment of the fee does not create the agency. It's the signing of the contract which does. And the first document we give people about the agency is the CIS form that discloses how we're going to be working with people, how our agency is going to be representing them, or the different ways we can, and as of now, how we intend to. If we're going to work as a disclosed dual agent, we also have them sign an informed consent to dual agency agreement. We have the exclusive buyer's agency agreements for the buyers as well. And for sellers, we have those listing agreement contracts. The payment options would be a retainer or a flat fee or a commission, which would then be split between the agencies. Or you could get paid per showing, although that's not, these things are not very common here in New Jersey. So dual agency is when the company is representing both parties in the transaction, not necessarily just the individual agent, the person. I could be working at the agency and represent both the seller and the buyer in the transaction. That would be dual agency, the obvious kind. But if I only represented the buyer and another agent at my company represented the seller, that would also too be dual agency, because the agency, the company's representing both parties in that transaction. So a dual agency is legal if it's properly disclosed. There's nothing wrong with dual agency. You just got to get them to sign that informed consent to dual agency agreement to give you that implicit permission to work in that capacity. Undisclosed dual agency, however, is illegal. So it has to be disclosed. Undisclosed dual agency is illegal. But there's nothing wrong with dual agency as long as it's properly disclosed. When working as a dual agent, you can't place one client's interest above another. You have to treat everybody fairly and honestly there, but you got to treat them fairly. Salespeople must remain neutral when their agency is acting as a dual agent, and agents can't provide the highest level of loyalty or disclosure when working as a dual agent, because you'll be privileged to certain information that you can't go blab to the other, which if you were working as a single form of agency, you could go back, if you learn something, you have the obligation to go back and report it to your client. But when you have a dual agency, you're representing both clients, your company is, you cannot go back and report information that you were told by one to the other. You can't, that would be placing one's interest above the other, and you can't do that. All right. So there are 4 versions of that dual agency form: one for a seller, one for a buyer, one for a landlord, one for a tenant. The book only has one inside in it, the one for the seller, I believe, on page 51. So while dual agency itself is not illegal, undisclosed dual agency is. Let's highlight that. That's on the top of page 49. Now, if you're at an open house, you're hosting an open house, who are you representing?
If you're hosting the open house, you're representing the seller?
Yeah, you're most likely there representing the seller. But when any buyer walks in that front door, you're going to be providing them all kinds of encouragement and guidance. And, they could get the misimpression that you're actually representing them because you're so helpful. So when working with a buyer as a seller's agent, a licensee must be careful not to give the buyer the impression that they are their client. You know, this is why you have to have that CIS form available there at those open houses too, to let people know right off the bat who your agency's representing at that time. So dual agency and conflict of interest. What do they talk about here? They take surveys, and surveys consistently reveal that a large majority of the buying public think they're being represented by the selling broker. And even worse, some brokers have that same impression. So New Jersey's license law forbids an agent to represent both parties except with their informed written consent by filling out that form. And that common situation that they're talking about is like with the open houses. You're representing the seller, you got the listing, but then you're furnishing all kinds of encouragement and advice to assist the buyer that walks in, and they start getting the impression that you're representing them. So here is that sample informed consent to dual agency for the seller. There's one for a seller, there's one for a buyer, one for a landlord, and one for a tenant. And we went over these, and I showed you all of those forms on the first day. We went over these. So undisclosed dual agency and conflict of interest will continue here. A possible conflict occurs when the seller's agent comes to identify with that buyer, like at the open house. You're encouraging all kinds of advice and assistance, and they start to think that you're representing them. And yeah, it would be even worse if you thought that too, and you didn't know. Negotiation and compromise are often needed in transactions. And if you never come about disclosing the fact that you're representing the seller and not the buyer in that transaction, or both, claims of damages could occur if that deal falls apart, no fault of yours, but then somebody gets bent out of shape and they want to sue. They could claim, well, you never disclosed that you were representing both parties or just the other one, and you never disclosed that by giving the CIS or the informed consent to dual agency agreement. Yeah, you'd probably lose that case because you didn't disclose the agency situation there. So an agent purchasing a seller's property without disclosing the fact that they're an agent would bring up a conflict. Agents selling their own property without disclosing they're an agent, or an agent that has an indirect interest in the transaction, like if they're helping a family member buy or sell a house, or if you're a member of an organization and you're helping that organization with a real estate matter, you have to disclose the fact that you're a licensee and you're a member of that organization. So that client is, you're a member of that organization from that client. Now, nobody's going to get an advantage or disadvantage if you do or don't, but it's you have an obligation to disclose it. So disclose. And once again, they talk about those conflicts right here on the bottom of page 50. Conflict of interest. That's why I put this little bracket over here. Those situations that I just described, they got it down here. So I'm not going to go over it again because I just described them. Now, material information. Okay, so let's go to page 52. Let's skip over the informed consent to dual agency form here and go to page 52. Material information is any information, usually about the physical condition of a property, that could affect the buyer's decision in purchasing. Or on a buyer's side, it could be the buyer's ability to get financing. That would be considered material information that a seller would want to know if the buyer's having trouble obtaining the financing, right? So we do need to know what material information is. It's usually any information about the physical condition of the property, not necessarily negative things, but anything that could affect the buyer's decision in purchasing. Like how many bedrooms and bathrooms? Could that affect your decision in purchasing? Certainly. The architectural style, sure, some people may not be able to climb stairs, so they need a ranch style home or something, you know, or they definitely need a garage, you know, and is it attached or detached? These are things that matter. What kind of heating system the house has? What kind of heating fuel is used? Could that make your a decision? Could that affect your decision in purchasing a house if it's on oil heat versus gas heat versus something else? Sure.
Yes.
Sure, absolutely. You know, what about if you're on public utilities versus having well water and septic systems? The septic systems like having your own private sewer system that you need to maintain buried in your backyard close to your house. You know, yeah, these things could affect somebody's decision in purchasing. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with them. They could all be perfectly functional, no problems. But these are all considered material information that could affect the buyer's decision in purchasing. Therefore, it is material information. Okay. So the seller must disclose material information as well as defects and improvements. So they have to disclose what's included and what's excluded from the sale, and we as the real estate agent should really probe at that so we don't have any conflicts or problems towards the end of the transaction when a buyer thinks that something was included in the sale when in fact it wasn't. Usually disclosed at the time of the listing, we have the seller fill out that seller property condition disclosure report that would state those things. And we as licensees, we have an obligation to investigate and disclose all material information as well as defects, even those that may not be readily apparent. We have to disclose. So let's do some highlighting here of these things and make our notes. This says material defect here. Let's do all these highlights and underlines and whatnot. And then we'll get to the explanation on the next slide.
Got it.
Got it.
All right. Anybody still taking notes?
Got it.
All right. Um, yeah, okay. So, okay, now highlight the ones on this page as well and make these notes on the side. All these things we're going to be going over on the next slide. From this slide and the last one, the next slide has explanations of all of them. They just put a bracket around these paragraphs, right? Clue report, buyer's material defect, and stigmatizing factor over here, and do that highlight. Everybody got it?
Got it.
Got it.
Got it. Got it.
Somebody was still writing, or? Okay. So this slide has all those things from those last two slides on it here. Material information, except my explanation is a little more straightforward on some of these things. Like material information is any information usually about the physical condition of a property that could affect the buyer's decision in purchasing. It could also be defects, but also things that are not. For example, how many beds and baths, the type of heating fuel used to heat the house, type of roof, lot size, architectural style. Is there a garage, a basement, public utilities versus private, or a buyer's ability to obtain financing? That could be material information to a seller. So a material defect indicates a problem. Defect is a problem. So a material defect versus material information. Material defect is a problem that can be discovered by an ordinary visual inspection. If you bother to look around, you could see it, like cracks in a foundation or beams, water sitting on the floor, mold growing on the walls, water stains on the ceiling, sloping floors. You walk from one side of the room to the other and you're going downhill. That's an indication there may be a problem there. Unused heating oil tank that's in the basement. That's a problem, or in the ground, but you're not going to see that necessarily. Now, a latent defect, the word latent means hidden. So a latent defect is a hidden defect, one that requires further inspection to uncover. So a hidden defect is a latent defect. It's a problem not discoverable by an ordinary visual inspection. It requires further investigation to reveal the problem, like bad ephes stucco jobs, in-ground oil tank, water leaks that may not be easily visible, but there's some rotted sheathing beyond the walls, for instance, or termite mud tubes that that you can't see very easily. Radon gas. Radon is a gas that's in the air. It's an invisible, odorless, tasteless gas that causes cancer. You have to take air samples to figure that to see if it has radon gas, or do testing of the water to see if there's any contaminants in it. Sellers are required to disclose any latent defects that they're aware of, as well as any material ones. Now, you guys want to find out if there was ever an insurance claim made on a property because there was a fire or a car drove through the front of the house or something? Well, then get a clue. There's something called a clue report. This is kind of like a Carfax for the insurance companies. Where anytime there's an insurance payout, it's added to like the history of that property that the insurance companies have these clue reports. Now, buyer's not going to be able to request this or get this, but when they're shopping for homeowners insurance, their insurance company runs a clue report, and you could ask them for a copy. So if you want to find out if there's a property you're interested in, you could have the buyers, call up their insurance company to get an insurance quote because they're possibly interested in buying this property. The insurance company is going to run a clue report and just tell them to ask the insurance company if they could get a copy of it. All right. They won't have a problem with that. They may be a little shocked that you know what it is, though. All right. So these are the little details that make you a good agent. A lot of agents don't even remember this after this class, what a clue report is, or to ask for one. Now, the book itself doesn't actually use this term stigmatizing factor. However, it will be on exam, and you do need to know what a stigmatizing factor is. Stigmatizing factor is something that does not affect the physical condition of the property, but it can affect its desirability and value. Like if somebody was just raped in a house or murdered, if there was a recent suicide or home invasion in a house, this could turn off some buyers from wanting to buy that house, right? So stigmatizing factors, there may be nothing wrong with the house physically, but these unpleasant events like rape, murder, suicide, home invasion, robbery, they're not very attractive to buyers to know that happened there, may make them feel uneasy. So it could affect the saleability and value of a property. Now, we are not required to investigate or disclose stigmatizing factors, only material information and material defects. However, if asked and the agent has knowledge about it, they have to be honest. You can't lie, and you have to disclose. But you shouldn't volunteer any information about stigmatizing factors, because it doesn't affect the physical condition of the property. And you also have to examine and think about, well, how does that affect your fiduciary duty to the seller? Okay, you guys want to snap a picture of this slide? Because it's a pretty good one actually to study. You got the material information, material defect, latent defect, and stigmatizing factor, and a little write up here about the clue report. So once again, stigmatizing factor, these are unpleasant events like rape, murder, suicide, home invasion, things like that that could happen at a house. They don't physically affect the property, but they could affect its saleability and value. Take a look at this example.
We're going to turn out to that major development involving a home we have reported on here before and the disturbing letters sent to the family who bought it. The family bought their dream home in New Jersey, never moving in after getting frightening letters from someone calling themselves the Watcher. Now the family has finally found someone. I got everyone's attention here. Someone's going to buy that house. Gio Benitez is here with more. Hey, Gio.
Hey, David, good morning. Yeah, for years, so many thought nobody would buy this house because of all that negative publicity with those threatening letters. But this morning, we know the family has finally gotten rid of it by taking a major financial loss. This morning, ABC News.
So, major financial loss. Can a stigmatizing factor affect the value of the house? Yeah. And they're like, it finally sold after years. So can it affect its saleability? Yeah.
News has learned the New Jersey family, allegedly terrorized by creepy letters from someone named the Watcher, has finally sold the house that started their nightmare. Derek and Maria Broadus bought this idyllic home in Westfield, New Jersey for $1.3 million back in 2014, but they say a stranger kept them from moving in by sending letters like this: I watch and wait for the day the young blood will be mine again, and I pass by many times a day, you know I will be watching.
I've lived here my whole life, so yeah, it was a pretty big shocker.
Now, 5 years later, the family's selling the property that they've never lived in, that has haunted them for years, taking a loss, selling it for $400,000 less than they paid for it.
So can a stigmatizing factor affect the value? Yeah.
Less than they paid for it. We spoke with their attorney in the midst.
By the way, this particular situation, The Watcher, Netflix actually bought the rights to this, and they made a little movie series about it. Although it is awful, it's horrible. They turned it into some kind of weird devil worshiping, kid eating, stupid story. But it was based off of this. This is where they got the idea from, being terrorized by a neighbor, and then their writers came up with some kind of a weird scenario for it into a series. But it was based on this actual home sale.
Of their ordeal.
That's a great house. This is a total tragedy and nightmare for my clients.
The Watcher's letters describing anger about renovations to the home and detailing the movements of the family and their kids. One letter saying, all of the windows and doors allow me to watch you and track you as you move through the house.
From day one, they've been trying to solve this case. They hired a forensic linguist to take a look at the letters and see if there were any patterns. They scoured the internet looking for clues.
But despite years of investigations, and while authorities did discover some DNA evidence, they never found enough to charge a suspect.
Our police department conducted an exhaustive investigation. Such efforts have not, however, yielded information leading to charges being filed.
In an interview,
You figure that somebody's buying a $1.3 million house, they'd at least have like a Ring doorbell with a camera on it. Some kind of security system that they would be able to catch these people. It's not exactly rocket science. They had that stuff back in 2014.
With New York Magazine last year, Derek comparing the ordeal to cancer, saying we think about it every day.
They wanted to get rid of the house because they knew it was going to be this burden. They knew they weren't going to move in. From there, the next thing they want more than anything is to know who did this.
And we're told the family still lives in Westfield after staying with family a few blocks away from the Watcher house. Now they've bought a new home and they hope this one brings them peace of mind. But what an ordeal.
We don't know anything about the new owners.
No, not yet.
Hopefully they're not watching.
Yeah.
We want to keep them in that home. I'm sure they had full disclosure. At least I hope they did.
You hear what he just said? You guys just hear what he said?
Yes.
I hope they had full disclosure. At least I hope they did. Was the agent responsible? Were they required to disclose any of this information?
Only if they knew about it.
Well, even if they knew about it.
Oh, yeah.
No, they're not
If they were
always.
asked about it.
If they're asked about it. Otherwise, no, because this does not affect the physical condition of the property. This is a local social issue. It does not affect the physical condition of the property. So therefore, as agents, we're not required to investigate or disclose this information, even if we have knowledge about it, unless somebody asks us. I mean, and what exactly are you going to ask? You know, you'd have to ask a real generalized question, you know, like, are there any stigmatizing factors on this property I should be aware of? Is there something that that I should be aware of that's weird that's going on with this house? You'd have to ask a real general question. I mean, it's not on the top of most people's minds to ask a question like, hey, is some weirdo writing strange letters and dropping them off, threatening letters and dropping them off in a mailbox over here? You know, it's not like a common issue. So, how would you really ask it? It'd have to be like a very generalized question. But if somebody asks you and you have the knowledge, you have to disclose.
We're going to turn that.
And so that was in Westfield. So, you know, we know that these things happen in all over the place. They happen in desirable towns like Westfield. These aren't just like in high crime areas. You know, here's one in another area this one's in California. Another stigmatizing factor. I used to have another story, but you could only stream it through the website, and I was unable to download it. Now it's not even on the news site anymore. This was from a couple of years back. There was actually another story which was quite interesting because that story was a property owner got foreclosed on, and the bank they hired a real estate agent to go over, change the locks, go through the house, inspect it, you know, do a report back to the bank, let them know about this property that's theirs. Okay. So we had to do that property inspection and check it out, and they were going to list the property with the real estate company. But in the meantime, you have real estate companies that act as asset managers for the bank, and they'll maintain those properties until they're ready for sale. So they just got this property through foreclosure. So the realtor went to the house once, and okay, they put out their report. Now they went to the house again, now that they're ready to sell it, but they need to clear some belongings out that were left behind. There was a car in the garage. And on that second inspection, the realtor made a startling discovery in the car in the garage that the former owner was actually found dead in the back seat of her car in the garage. And there was a strange occurrence because her body was mummified. Now, sometimes this can happen naturally. It doesn't have to be like the Egyptians did it, back in the day. This is sometimes this could happen naturally if the conditions are right, where a body can be mummified. But it was really strange and odd, and then the police had to get involved in it. So why did this lady get foreclosed on? Well, you know what? She actually died, and she was dead for years in that garage. It turns out that she kept to herself, and she traveled a lot for work. So her neighbors would cut her grass and shovel snow or do whatever. They'd take care of her property when she wasn't around for her, because they were all caring neighbors and stuff, but they never really talked. So her payments were automatically withdrawn from her mortgage for her house. They were automatically withdrawn from her bank account until that bank account was fully depleted. That's when the foreclosure occurred. And of course, she didn't show up to any of the court hearings and all that stuff because of the foreclosure. Didn't answer any of the mail. So these are it was a really weird situation. Now it came into play. Well, what happened to her? Did she die of natural causes? And why would she be in her back seat of her car? Was she murdered? Was the key in the on position? Did she commit suicide, start the car, and just fell asleep in the garage in the back seat? Nobody could remember any of those details and stuff, and it's still a question by the family. But either way, would you want to buy a house where somebody was found dead in the back seat of their car in a garage? That creates a stigmatizing factor. I first learned about that story because that was around the time of election seasons for presidential elections. And, people are talking about how, certain people are illegally casting votes. They're visiting graveyards and getting people's names to cast votes for them. Well, the interesting thing was, they did find out that this lady had been dead for a couple of years already in the backseat of her car in a garage, but yet she voted for a presidential election. So this is how it became a national story, and I heard about that in the news. And then I looked into it. I was like, wait, this could be a great story for real estate. This is a stigmatizing factor, and unfortunately, I can only explain it to you. That news story with the thing, I guess it aged out, and they don't. It's not available on those websites anymore, so I can't really find it. Just in print, you could find it. But here's another one: stigmatizing factor. This one is really creepy. You tell me if you think that this is stigmatizing or not. You guys can see the slideshow, right? I'm back to the slideshow.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
It needed work, but don't we all? When the single-story house with a pool in San Diego's Carmel Valley came up for sale, a lot of families wanted it. Married couple Jerry Rice and Janice Bruder got it. This woman, Kathy Rowe, then a 50-year-old unassuming wife and mother, was among those who didn't get the house. That just didn't seem right. At least if you were Kathy Rowe, it did.
I had put so much hope into this house. I walked in, it was my house.
Yeah, but it wasn't your house.
No, but it felt like the house I always wanted to own. And when I found out we didn't get it, it was devastating. It was heartbreaking. It was almost like the loss of a loved one. It was that critical to me.
Kathy Rowe had a job with the county, had a very ill husband, she said, and had a Mother of the Year award, being the sole caregiver looking after their severely disabled daughter, Rachel. That house, though.
It had more significance than just a structure with four walls. When I lost it, I cried and cried.
Kathy Rowe also had enough bank to offer $100,000 more for Jerry and Janice's home. When they failed to respond to the note she sent them, she launched a harassment campaign, stopping their mail, relisting the house on Zillow, sending those phony Valentines. Oh, and at the outset, coming by the house with her daughter on Halloween. You wanted to see who was in the house, didn't you?
I had no interest in them. I was more curious what they had done to the house.
Who came to the door when you trick-or-treated?
The wife.
the wife, Janice, whose photo Kathy Rowe would later put on this Carmel Valley freak show online ad, inviting men to stop by anytime.
I was jealous, destroyed, and devastated with pain and depression, and
Why did that result in your lashing out at innocent people?
that's the form that it took.
You enjoyed this, didn't you?
No.
You enjoyed making these people
Well,
suffer.
I thought it was funny. I did not view it as suffering.
Funny.
But when men responded to the ad, Kathy Rowe wrote them back, fueling the fire, providing specific and perverse encouragement to one 25-year-old male looking for fun with a totally unaware Janice. I'm going to leave out the dirty words here. This is someone pretending to be you. I'm pretty much home all day, every day, bored and incredibly horny. I love to be surprised and have a man just show up at the door and force his way in the door and on me, totally taking me while I say no. Janice, what is the person who is writing this trying to do to you?
He wanted me raped. This is my wife they're talking about. There's no mistaking the intent there.
Then, for the Rices, the ultimate nightmare. Another man did show up at the house, only Janice wasn't home. Jerry met him at the front door. He thought he was going to walk in and have his way with your wife.
Yeah, I knew something was off with the guy.
Flummoxed, the man fled and emailed Kathy Rowe. A guy was there. Had to make up an excuse why I was there. But Kathy Rowe wouldn't let it go and urged him to return to the house with another sordid scenario. I remember what you said. It's like, I hope it's okay with you. I see other guys.
Right.
And you ask about threesomes.
Well, he had no interest in being involved if there was any other man involved.
You're the luckiest person in the world because of that, aren't you?
It never even crossed my mind that a man could go to the house and hurt her.
Probably should have, shouldn't have.
Oh, absolutely. I normally am more concerned about other people's safety and welfare than my own.
Yeah, not so much this time.
Absolutely not this time. It's just how impaired my thinking was.
Kathy insisted we also speak to her psychologist.
All right, I'm not going to get into the rest of this. She starts giving psychological reasons why she was acting this way because she was under stress and all that. I mean, there's no excuse for this. Try to set somebody up to get raped like that. But anyway, do you think that this boils down to a stigmatizing factor for a house?
I think it would be stigmatizing if it had occurred to the previous owner as well. That makes sense.
Well, that's the thing. It has to this owner right here. Now, if they turned around and tried selling the house, is that a stigmatizing factor? Would you want to buy this house now, knowing that there's all kinds of posts online encouraging people to come over and rape the female that lives there?
No.
That's definitely stigmatizing. You know, there's nothing physically wrong with the house, but damn, right? This is sick. This is crazy. These are types of scenarios you wouldn't even think of. Most people wouldn't even imagine. If you guys want to watch the rest of this, it is on the slideshow. I'm not going to play the whole scenario here. But anyway, at the end of the day, she ended up getting caught and she just got probation, you know, and a couple of years of probation and couldn't have access to a computer. And the kicker is she ended up buying a house in the area, less than a mile away from them. But they said, well, she'd have more supervised coverage being on probation than if she actually went to jail and got released with no supervision afterwards. So, but they're like, yeah, she's still definitely a danger and threat to society the way that she acts. All right. So off-site conditions. Let's move there. Off-site conditions. These are factors that are not on-site of the property that you're wishing to buy. So factors not on the subject property that affect its value and desirability. That's what an off-site condition is. Like if you find out later that the city dump is down the block, or you're near an airport, but near an airport you probably hear the planes flying over, or next door to a cemetery. It's an off-site condition. It's something on someone else's property. It could affect you're wanting to buy it, right? But usually off-site conditions are beyond your control. You really can't cure them, these problems. You find out that the land next door to you is contaminated. That's an off-site condition. It's not on your property, but who wants to live next to a contaminated site, right? So licensees must give people an opportunity to investigate any local conditions that are not on the subject property. If it's new construction, you have a 5-day right of rescission to back out of the purchase contract for the discovery of some off-site condition that turns you off from buying that property. Now, if it's a resale property of an existing property that comes up for sale, caveat emptor, that's Latin for let the buyer beware. Do your own due diligence before you ever make an offer. So that term caveat emptor, it's not pronounced caveat emptor like it looks like there on the bottom of the slide. But that's a word you'll get on exams. I think it's in the last chapter, or chapter 20 or 21 it's in. Caveat emptor means let the buyer beware. So do your due diligence. You have to know what this term means. You probably will see it on exam. And you need to know what the rescission period is for the off-site condition. And remember that off-site condition or those rescission periods, I got a slide with all of them on there, remember? Which I'll show you again probably after this slide or coming up somewhere. Yeah. So let's highlight this pertaining to off-site conditions on page 53 in the book. Now, in 1995, several families sued a developer and a broker, alleging that both had known that a development was located a half a mile away from a hazardous waste dumping site, and they failed to disclose that fact. The trial court ruled in favor of the developer and the broker, stating there was no duty to disclose to potential purchasers the condition of what's on someone else's property. On appeal, however, because not all judges rule the same, that decision was reversed. The New Jersey Supreme Court ultimately held that conditions beyond the limits of a specific property may be considered material facts that must be disclosed to prospective purchasers. But I mean, what are you going to do? Start investigating? This is a half a mile away. I mean, what's the cutoff here? How far do we got to look to see, if there's a hazardous waste site or something, it's kind of ridiculous. So as a result of this decision, 2 disclosures for off-site conditions are now included in all contracts. One refers to the new construction and the other to existing properties, the resale properties. So the new construction notice gives you 5-day right of rescission where the purchaser can back out of the contract for any of these reasons. But the resale notice states that the buyer has to do their due diligence before they make an offer. Let the buyer beware, caveat emptor. Do your due diligence, do your research before you make an offer. Everybody got those highlights?
Yes.
Yes.
That's an off-site condition for you, right? What are you going to do but make a joke about it? Quiet neighbors across the street. Got a cemetery there. All right, now, once again, here is that slide that we've seen several times already. The rescission periods. I put this slide together with all the different rescission periods that are in the book, all in one neat place for you to study from. Instead of having to check them out where they're peppered all over the book, you got it all here. These are the rescission periods. They all deal with new construction for the purchase of real estate, except for the last one, which deals with resales as well as new construction. That's your attorney review period, the 3 days. Here's your 5-day right of rescission for new construction for off-site conditions. Your 7-day right of rescission for large in-state subdivisions or where there's common area elements involved, and your for new construction. And your 7-day right of rescission for out-of-state properties, new construction that are offered to New Jersey residents. And then for mortgage loans, You have a 3-day right of rescission for refinancing. You could back out of that refinancing, 3-day right of rescission you have. But for loans to buy real estate, which we call purchase money mortgages, that's the whole category of loans. The purchase money mortgage, that's read it backwards, mortgage money to purchase. So any loan used to buy real estate has 0 right of rescission after you signed for it. After you close on that loan, you bought it. It's your loan now. You're married to it. There's no backing out of it now. Anybody ever hear this, Megan's Law? It's a law that alerts the community to the presence of convicted sex offenders in an area. Could that be of importance to potential buyers or renters? Well, we as real estate agents, we're not allowed to do the research for this. We're not allowed to provide lists or disseminate any information about where sex offenders live. What we can do is provide the interested party, those buyers and renters, with the where they could get the information that they desire, and they could research it themselves. So the county prosecutor maintains a list of all convicted sex offenders because they have to update and check in with the local county prosecutor, wherever it is that they're moving, to be on that sex offender list. So they're aware where they're aware of where they're located. Now, only people who live in the area can make inquiries about where the sex offenders live. So the county prosecutor is not going to give you any information unless you already live there until after you close on that sale or lease. But real estate agents can refer concerned buyers to the State Police Megan's Law Registry, where they could go search it online and find out where those sex offenders are. But we're not allowed to go printing any lists or disseminating any information about that, okay? All we could do is give people this link. This is the link to the Megan's Law Registry. If we were to click on that, oh, give me 1 second here. Let's try that one more time. And if we were to click on that, it takes us here to the State Police website. Okay, this is the Megan's Law Registries, the New Jersey Sex Offender Internet Registry. All right, now, they go on telling you all kinds of disclosures about the laws, about sex offenders, how they have to check in with the county prosecutor and all. But they also have lists of prohibitions and misuse of the information that's in this registry. You're not allowed to copy this information. You're not allowed to print flyers and start putting them up to try to harass those sex offenders. You're not allowed to, there's laws out there that protect the sex offenders when they're out from being harassed by people. And it could end up giving you financial fines, monetary fines, and even jail time for harassing them. But here's more information about the State Police website about Megan and how this Megan's Law came about. Because there was a sex offender that was released and the parents were unaware of it, and he was living across the street. He ended up kidnapping the girl and sexually assaulting her, and whatever happened. But they ended up passing this law to make the community alert the community to the presence of convicted sex offenders in the area. And it goes on to give details about the sex offenders as well. What their risk of reoffending is, what exactly they did. All that information is listed there. So look at this, you could have up to $15,000 fine, other fines of $1,000, and you could even have time in jail, 3 to 5 years in jail for messing around with this and republishing this information. All right, so let's click I accept and let's go into that sex offender registry. Okay, here, by the way, I'll share that link with you if you guys want to search it on your own while I am going over it here. Look where the sex offenders are in your neighborhood. You'll be surprised, they're everywhere. Because look, this is where you go to then. It takes you here. By the way, if you have any trackers or IP address blockers or anything like that, you have to turn those off because this search won't work because they do track you on this website. So that this way, if something happens to one of the sex offenders, well, now they could trace your IP address and track you down, and investigators will come over and talk to you. Okay, so you could click here then, and you could search for the sex offenders in your area. And you basically put your address in, or you could search them by name or city or what's it, non-compliant offenders who don't check in. Okay. Now, so that's how that works. Let's take a look at something else here. There's a link here that shows you, oh, got to back out, got to start it again here. Accept. Okay, let's look at this presentation I could show you without doing an actual search of the registry, because I am recording this and I don't want to get in trouble for searching the registry and copying it in a video recording and then sharing that. But anyway, here's some important information about this state police sex offender registry. 45% of sexual assault victims are under 12 years of age. 75% of them knew their attackers. And it's estimated that 80% of all addresses have at least one sex offender within 1 mile of them. More than half of the rape or sexual assault incidents happen within 1 mile of their victim's home. And sex offenders cross all kinds of socioeconomic boundaries, living in both the richest as well as the poorest of neighborhoods. So this, the purpose of this registry here, the law was the statute sets provisions for those registered, those people to register as sex offenders, and then their whereabouts have to be verified at regular intervals based on their risk level to the community. Information is collected for law enforcement purposes as well. In case there is like a rape or a kidnapping or something, they'll first hit up these people if they're living in the area, right? And the public notification process begins within 48 hours of anybody being added to that registry or being convicted. All right, and so you could do the search here on the website using these links. It tells you how to navigate this website as well. Now check this out. This is how it works. You do a search, it pulls up the people's information like a kind of like a Google map locator, and then you could click on one of them and it'll show you a picture of the sex offender, what kind of vehicle they drive, the license plate number, they'll have their weight, height, you know, race, all that stuff is here, where address where they live, you know, all that information will be on the registry here so that you could see. It'll show you what their offense is, what tier ranking that they're in. See, like this. All right, and that's that. Okay, so it'll tell you what they exactly did. It'll get into specific details and tell you, you know, are they ranked tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 sex offender? All right, but what do we need to know for exams? What is the law that alerts the community to the presence of convicted sex offenders in the area? Are you not listening?
Was that a
Megan's
question?
Law.
Megan's Law. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, so let's do the highlight here. Megan's Law requires the community be alerted to the presence of convicted sex offenders. Buyers and lessees can obtain this information from the county prosecutor only after the sale or lease of the property has closed. Let me know when you got those highlights.
Got it.
I'm done.
Okay. All right, misrepresentation. You may want to snap a picture of this slide. This slide's pretty good explanation of it instead of it being split on a couple of pages in the book to study from. And I give a little more in-depth explanation like always. Puffing. Oh, we're not talking about Puff the Magic Dragon here. We're talking about puffing are exaggerated statements of opinion. It's done as part of salesmanship. You should be puffing. Puffing is what salespeople do. Isn't this the most gorgeous kitchen you've ever seen in your life? Look at these gorgeous floors. You could practically eat off of them. Now, it's a bit of an exaggeration. I'm not eating off anybody's floor, right? It's an exaggerated statement of opinion that's done as part of salesmanship. As long as you're not trying to cover up facts and mislead people about things, puffing is allowed and encouraged. It's a part of salesmanship. That's what you should do. You should be puffing as salespeople, you know? Look at this beautiful backyard. It's like your own private oasis back here, you know? Things like that. That's puffing. Now, there are three types of misrepresentation. What is misrepresentation? Well, misrepresentation, these are false or misleading statements that could mislead somebody. Fraud are intentional misrepresentations intended to harm or deceive. Then we have negligence. Those are unintentional misrepresentations by someone who should have known better, like you, the real estate licensee. Make sure that before you pass along any information that you get from a seller, you verify it before you pass it along as fact, because the public is going to assume often that you as the real estate agent are the expert, and before you go start talking about details of a house, that you had verified it at some form or level, right? But if an agent just passed along information that was supplied to them, and that information turns out to have been wrong or false, then they're guilty of negligence, and they could be sued for that. They're negligent misrepresentation of the facts. Now, because somebody was still harmed now by your misrepresentation, even if it wasn't your intent. Your intent does not matter. Innocent misrepresentation are false or misleading statements by someone who's not expected to have expertise in the subject matter. And that's usually like a homeowner. They could pass along information that's wrong and innocently do so. It's not always just done intentionally. For instance, I remember I went to get a listing one time, and I was meeting with the husband and wife. It was a little older couple, you know, and I'm meeting with a husband and wife, and I'm talking to the husband, having him fill out the seller's property condition disclosure report, and you know, he's telling me about how the roof is only a year old. You know, the roof is new; it's only a year old. At which point the wife walks in the kitchen. She was like, "What was that about the roof?" And then he's like, "Oh, I was just telling him how we replaced the roof, and it's only a year old." And then the wife slaps him in the back of the head. She's like, "What's wrong with you?" She's like, "That had to have been at least 5 years ago when Jimmy got married," you know? And now, so, I mean, he was like, "Wow, how time flies." You know, he wasn't meaning to misrepresent the facts to me, but if I just took that information that he said that it's a new roof, it's less than a year old there, and I ran with it, I passed along false or misleading information to the public who's going to rely on the information I'm providing about this house to be factual. So I could have been sued for negligent misrepresentation if I just took that info and ran with it. So if somebody tells you that they did an improvement, like they replaced the roof, okay, well, you got a bill from the contractor that did the work, or do you have a permit? Or did you do it without permits? Huh. You know, you should have something there with the dates on it that shows when it was done. So you could trust people, but always verify before you pass along any information as fact. That's a good old adage to live by. Trust but verify. That old Ronald Reagan adage. Trust but verify. Don't just run with anything that somebody tells you. So that's the best way to avoid misrepresentation here is trust but verify information before passing it along. Never present opinions as facts and don't lie. You know, that's the most obvious one, don't lie. But never present opinions as fact and trust people, but verify information before you pass any info they feed you along. And always refer specific questions to the experts. You're going to be in this business and you're going to learn a lot of things. You're going to learn legal stuff. You're going to learn about contracts. You're going to learn about inspections because you've been to so many now. You're going to learn about parts of the house and all this stuff. You're going to learn about tax stuff, where the sex offender stuff. You're going to learn a lot of information, but don't play the expert. Okay, don't put your head on the chopping block by providing information you're not expected to be the expert on. Okay, don't misrepresent yourself as an expert in anything else, even if you do have some expertise in that field, because you're not acting in that capacity right now. You're acting as a real estate agent, right? So legal questions, you should always refer them to attorneys. Property condition questions, always refer to a licensed New Jersey home inspector, a surveyor, appraiser, title company, pest control company, a pool maintenance company, maybe if that property has a pool, you know. This is actually a link here for the home inspectors that you could check and see if they are licensed in New Jersey. So let me pull that up. All right. So you see the New Jersey Division of Consumer Affairs that takes you to. So if you want here, I'll share this with you in the chat window. But once again, all these links are in the class links Word document. So you could use this link to search by license type. Don't go by profession here. I think it's by license type. You could look up, scroll down, go to home inspector. Here we go, home inspector. And without typing in, I mean, you could type in somebody's license number that they should have on their business cards or ads to confirm that they're actually currently licensed home inspectors. You could search for them by city or what have you, but that's based on where they live, really. So let's just do a search of all New Jersey licensed home inspectors. And then it pops up. Now you can see these are all New Jersey licensed home inspectors, their names, their license numbers. And look, there's pages and pages and pages of them. Now, if you take a look though, license type, home inspector, and license status, like this guy is expired from Plainsboro. Who knows? Maybe he retired, maybe he died. Who knows? Active, expired, inactive, expired, active, pending. You know, make sure that they have active licenses. And you see some of them are New Jersey, Pennsylvania, South Carolina. Okay, well, this guy's inactive now. But I guess that some of these inspection companies, you know, these people may be somewhere else, but they keep their licenses active here in New Jersey. I guess this guy did for a little while. We relocated to South Carolina and just gave it up. Probably retired. All right. That's how you look and confirm. Questions about taxes? Well, we got to talk to your accountant or CPA or tax attorney about that. Where are the sex offenders? Well, you know, we should, you could always check the Megan's Law registry or with the county prosecutors, but only after you close. All right. Anybody need a picture of this or no?
No.
All right, let's do these highlights on puffing and what fraud is. That's the bottom of page 53 there. And then on the top of page 54, we'll highlight this, the 3 types of misrepresentation. So you may want to write that up there, 3 types of misrepresentation. In the meantime, I'll type it there with that writing looking font. Once I find that slide, yeah. Okay. So this talks about fraud, negligent misrepresentation, and innocent misrepresentation like we had on that slide a couple slides ago. All right, and then we have the criteria to be found guilty of misrepresentation. In order to be found guilty of misrepresentation, there had to be a false or misleading statement or concealment of a material fact by a person who knows or should have known that that information was false, with intent to deceive or defraud, or if there was no such intent, the person still in the end was deceived or defrauded, and damages were suffered by a party who relied on the information that was provided. So it's relatively easy for an agent to avoid intentional misrepresentation by not lying, just stick to the truth. But also omissions and half-truths can misrepresent just as much as an actual straight-out lie, right? And the fact that you may have committed that inadvertently is not an excuse. The buyers looking at a rural property could be told that septic system works well, when in fact it does not. And if the agent knew that, well then intentional misrepresentation or fraud has occurred. And if the agent does not know the condition of the system, well, they should have known better. So they still misled the person by negligent misrepresentation. And half-truths may mislead with statements like, septic systems are normal in this area and there's probably nothing for you to worry about. While it's true in itself, it does skirt the issue in a misleading manner, especially to an ignorant buyer who may be unaware of what septic systems are and that, how you got to maintain them and all that stuff. So no mention at all of a septic system may also be misleading, particularly to urban buyers who may assume that public sewers are available everywhere. We've got septic systems and well water in Edison, Piscataway, areas around here. Not all the properties are on the public water and sewer systems. That the broker knew nothing about the condition of the system will be of little defense if the brokers in that community should have known that the possibility of them having well water or septic systems and such in the area is a possibility still. So even if the intention is not to defraud, the buyer who purchases the property and then discovers that the septic system was faulty has suffered damages, and they could seek to recover them by suing the broker. That means you. In recent years, buyers and sellers have become increasingly aware of the possible dangers posed by radon, lead paint, asbestos, building materials, toxic pollutants, urea formaldehyde spray foam insulation known as UFFI, and other environmental hazards. Licensees should be able to direct their clients and customers to websites and local agencies in order to gather information about issues that are important to them. Among areas where problems frequently arise are statements about the value of a property, where an agent may say something like, property values are sure to go up 10% in the next year. How the hell would you know that? You got that crystal ball? You got it like that? Don't go making statements like that to people, guys. The judgments have all been cleared up, or there's no problem hooking up to the sewers. Well, there may be. How far are they? How much is it going to cost? Who's paying for it? There may be a problem with that. So don't make statements that you're not positive about. Questions about boundary lines or zoning and lot sizes. In a recent case in another state, the buyer of a house that contained 100 square feet fewer than that was stated in the listing data. They sued the broker and they were awarded the cost to construct an additional 100 square feet of that area. The buyer may prefer to sue that broker who still has an office in town and a vulnerable reputation rather than the seller who may have already moved out of town. So if you start marketing a property, this is why most brokers do not quote square footage in New Jersey. And it's a thing that a lot of buyers get frustrated at when they come from other states. And that's because New Jersey is a litigious society. We are full of people who are sue happy. I think everything costs so damn much here. People sue over the dumbest things. All right, so to avoid misrepresentation, let's highlight, absolute statements should be avoided, and requests for information should be met by referring the questioners directly to the expert source. Okay. Well, once again, this is all stuff that was on that one slide of mine from several slides ago. What's the best way to avoid misrepresentation? Often an exam question. Refer people to the experts. Don't pretend that you are the expert in everything. It's top of page 55. All right, so this is what a septic system basically is. Here's a cutaway for that because we keep talking about them. So close to your house where your pipe is, where your drainage from all of your wastewater, everything from your tub to your toilet comes out into this waste pipe. And instead of going into a city sewer system, it goes into an underground tank that is buried close to the house, and that can be made of various materials. Here's a picture, a cutaway of a 2-compartment tank where all the solid waste will drop to the bottom. The sludge and greases will float to the top, and the liquids in the center, which we'll refer to as effluents. Okay, so they will then, for every gallon of water that goes into the tank, a gallon will flow out. So it'll go into the second compartment. Hopefully the solids won't get into there because they're down there at the bottom, and the greases will stay up top. And then what'll happen is just the liquid flows out. And then you should have a filter over here that prevents any of the sludges or solid waste to come out through this pipe, which could clog up and then destroy your septic system for your drain field. So basically the drain field, the liquids go and they flow out into a perforated pipe. You could have a series of these perforated pipes throughout your yard where the liquid goes out into, it'll be surrounded by gravel and sand and then buried in dirt and soil. And you shouldn't park cars or water the grass or do anything like that above there, which could compact this soil and the gravel and stuff, and does not allow the active natural bacteria to further kill the bacteria that are in those wastewaters. And then they get filtered out as they get through the ground. And now, in order for these septic systems to work, so you don't have to get them pumped out and drained out constantly because of all the solid waste buildup, you should, to maintain these, I think it's like every week or a couple of weeks or even once a month, depending on the system and what you're using, you gotta flush some active bacteria down your toilet to enter this tank. And those bacteria will actually eat the solid waste and turn it into liquids. So you don't have to have a vacuum truck come and pump it out so often. So here's another way that you could see with the drain field. It's not just necessarily one pipe, but a series of those pipes where the ground can absorb that water, that liquid. And here is the pumper truck and the access panel to those septic tanks that are in the ground. Here's one guy digging it out that was buried. I got that top he's pulling off there. There's 3 compartments here to access, and this is basically a big pumper truck. It's a vacuum. It's sucking out all the solid waste from within that tank. This tank was obviously not well maintained. Look how full that is. So how often do you gotta drain these tanks? Well, here's a little guide for you. Depending on the tank size, if it's a 1,000-gallon tank and you got 3 people in your family, it's every 3.7 years. But if you have a garbage disposal and dishwasher, add 1 person to the family size for each of these items. So if you have both of those, make it 5 people. So then you'd have to pump it out every 2 years. Provided that you're maintaining with your regular, making sure that that active bacteria is regularly flushed down the toilet to keep eating away at the solid wastes. You know, be careful about using too much toilet paper. Don't use, you got to be careful about the cleaners that you use. If they're antibacterial, well, they'll be killing the good bacteria that makes your septic tank run properly too. So you got to be careful about what you flush down your drain. Okay, public water systems work like this. You got reservoirs. You know, the water comes from the water company. You know, reservoirs get their water from the water. Water companies get their water from reservoirs. They refine it and then they send it out. They pump using pumping stations to get it out to your house. Now, so these pumping stations don't have to constantly be running to maintain pressure in the pipes. During off-peak hours, you'll have these water towers that will fill up and hold thousands or millions of gallons of water. And under the weight and the height of these towers, they build pressure, so there's no pumps and electricity that needs to be constantly used. So when you open up your tap in your house, or a fire department opens up a fire hydrant, you'll have sufficient water and pressure to maintain the demand. So the New Jersey Consumer Fraud Act prohibits misleading, fraudulent scam practices. We have our own laws about that, I guess, as well as that Sherman Antitrust Act stuff, right? Fines are up to $10,000 for a first violation, and there may be some exceptions to them. That's for the New Jersey Consumer Fraud Act. Nothing really to highlight here or study, really. But the Sherman Antitrust Act, you will get on exams, and you probably already have stuff highlighted here in the bottom of page 55, right?
Yes.
So the Sherman Antitrust Act, once again, if you didn't get it before, here's a good slide, snap a picture of it. It's a federal law that makes price fixing illegal. Price fixing is an illegal practice where agents from competing firms, the competition, are working with you to try to set an industry standard for the fees that you charge the public for your services. Or if you try to divide the markets and work with them to divvy up the market share. We'll get everything on this side of Main Street, you'll get everything on that side, or it can be done by price. Allocation of markets and price fixing are made illegal by the Sherman Antitrust Act. What should you do if you're confronted with somebody who's trying to get you involved in price fixing? Well, agents should immediately disassociate themselves from that situation, from the slightest discussion with the competitor about your fees, your commission fees or rates that you charge. Okay, there's no reason for you to be talking about that stuff with the competition. Within your office, you could have training, you could have role play on how you're going to charge the public, but not with the competition. You're supposed to be trying to get all the business away from them. And the whole purpose of this is when competitors compete with each other, they drive the prices down for the public. Good for the public, bad for us, but it's good for the public. It drives the prices down. You got two people offering the same product, right? What's going to bring the price down? What's going to get you to use their services? Well, if they lower their price. So competition lowers prices. Now, penalties can be severe if you're found guilty of violating the Sherman Antitrust Act. It is considered a misdemeanor crime. But it is punishable by up to $1 million and 10 years in prison. That's for an individual. But corporations and trade groups, it could be up to 100 million or more, and up to 3 times the cost of the actual damages to that person. So, in order to stay in compliance with the Sherman Antitrust Act, if in an advertisement you mention a specific commission rate or amount that you do charge in an advertisement, you'll have to follow it up by saying somewhere in that ad, in New Jersey, all commissions are negotiable. Now, you may not be negotiating on that advertised commission rate. So why do you still have to say in New Jersey, all commissions are negotiable? Well, you're basically disclosing that the price has not been fixed. That you guys came up with that price all on your own, your fees that you charge. That's what that means. It doesn't mean that you're going to be negotiating any further from there. You could set your own fees and rates that you charge. But you need to know this. If you do advertise a commission rate or amount in the ad, you have to state that in New Jersey, all commissions are negotiable. Probably on exams. All right, this is the bottom of page 55. You should already have this highlighted and these notes written, right?
Yes.
If not, take care of that now.
Already got it.
All right, then on the next page, you should have this highlighted, right? On page 56.
Yes.
Yes.
Everybody got that?
Hold on.
Okay.
Got it.
Okay. So ethics, liability, and disciplinary offenses. Let's see, we're going to go over breach of fiduciary duties, failure to observe standards of care, conflicts of interest, some of the stuff we've already gone over. Misrepresentation, we just went over that. And numerous other offenses may result in fines or suspension or revocation of people's licenses. Let's highlight on page 57, E&O, errors and omissions insurance. This will absolutely be on exams all the time. You need to know that errors and omissions insurance is the real estate industry's equivalent of medical malpractice insurance like a doctor would carry. You know, all kinds of industries have their insurance to protect them. You know, attorneys have insurance, doctors have insurance. You know, we're all humans. We all make mistakes and stuff happens. We need to have our insurance that protects us. Errors, in case we make a mistake, or omissions, in case we forget to put something in a contract, you know, and it costs somebody. But these E&O policies also have riders on them usually that cover us in case of thefts at open houses and stuff like that, in case a homeowner didn't have homeowners insurance or something, you know, or they don't want to claim it on their homeowners insurance and they want us to pay for it. We could get it taken out of our E&O insurance. Most brokerages have a policy of a couple $1 million. You, as the individual real estate agent, have to pay your share of that insurance. So your broker is going to issue you a bill for the insurance policy that they already paid for and have. They're just going to, they have insurance for X amount of agents in their office. And annually, they'll submit an updated list of names of agents to their insurance company. But they're just insuring them based on the number of agents in the office there. So you're not going to get an actual insurance policy statement or anything like that. Your brokers are just going to give you a bill for it. Okay. Now, this could be a little tricky now when it comes time to, if you start working at a brokerage, you got to ask them when you're interviewing guys trying to find a broker. Some brokers won't let you start working. They won't let you set foot in that door until you pay your share of that E&O insurance policy. Some of them want you to pay it all up front. Some of them, they'll take it out of your first transaction or little by little. You got to find out how they charge and how much it is. This could vary from $450 to $600 a year on average. Good thing to know before you start, right? That's one of those questions I have in that sample job interview list that is in the shared Google Drive. I have that interview sheet with all kinds of questions to ask brokers that you're going to go work for. How much do you charge for E&O, and do I got to pay it up front? So E&O insurance, errors and omissions, is the real estate industry's equivalent to medical malpractice insurance like a doctor would carry. You know, we're all humans. We all make mistakes. We need insurance to cover us. You should avoid dual contracts. What are dual contracts? It's anytime parties sign a contract, we got to give them a duplicate original of it, right? But the buyer's lender, because they're probably going to be getting a loan, the buyer's lender is going to want a copy of that contract too. So say we put a contract together for $300,000 house. Now the buyer's lender wants a copy of that contract and you give them a copy of it, but for $325,000. That's mortgage fraud. That's dual contracts. And obviously if you're dealing in that, this is a good segue to ethics. you clearly have no idea what ethics are. Ethics are standards dictating moral principles addressing two sides of the profession. How an industry's professionals should treat each other as professionals, and how licensees should treat the public. You could do things that are immoral, but not illegal. Okay. You could do unethical things that are not necessarily illegal. But we have ethics standards that we need to follow as being members of a realtor association, NAR. They hold us to higher standards of ethics that we have to follow. So even though you may not be violating licensing law, if you violate NAR's ethical standards, well, this isn't going to affect your license, but it could affect your membership in NAR. And most MLSs require you to have, in order to have access, you have to be a realtor, member of NAR, a realtor in good standing, meaning that you paid your realtor dues and you have taken their Realtors Code of Ethics training class that's required every 3 years. So let's highlight that. These moral ethics, these moral principles address two sides of a profession, and most professions have a code of ethics. Physicians have their Hippocratic oath, although they have not really been following that lately. In recent years, you're seeing all this stuff about pushing transgenderism and sex changes and hormone blockers on children. And this stuff is irreversible. It is not reversible like they've been pushing out there. A lot of people think that it's reversible. It could cause irreversible, irreparable damage and harm to these kids. That's why some countries now are taking action against the physicians that engage in this stuff, and they outlaw it and they make it illegal. You have to be at least of legal age, an adult to make those decisions. Right now, they're pushing this stuff on impressionable young minds. So the doctors that are pushing this stuff are doing it because the surgeries and procedures are expensive. So they're making a lot of money. So they're putting their own interest first. They're not really abiding by their own Hippocratic oath to do no harm, to care for people. That's the doctor's, that should be the doctor's utmost number one, position there. Anyway, and the attorney's code of ethics and professional responsibility. We're seeing a lot of, right now in our society, we're also seeing a lot of this where we're having prosecutors that are using this for their own gain, or they're doing it for political reasons. They're not actually following the law or their professional code or responsibility. I've dealt with this before where I had a client that that she bought a property and she tried selling it, and she had a problem because on the it still showed that there was a mortgage on the house for an outstanding mortgage on a house that she owned, which was from the guy that she bought it from. But the proceeds from her purchase should have paid that off. And so this could be a common error where just, people are human. They just forgot to go file the paperwork to say that it was paid off in the public and recorded in the public record, but it was paid off. But if it doesn't say that in a public record, you as a buyer should not be buying this house until you make sure that seller gets the paperwork right. So she was unable to sell this house until she got this stuff straightened out. So how do you get it straightened out? Contact the lender. Tell them to file the paperwork that says that it was paid off like they should have, right? Well, this lender went out of business. Now what? Okay, well, she did a title search and got title insurance when she bought the property, right? Yeah. So she starts going through her paperwork and she couldn't find the paperwork for that. So I said, well, call your attorney that you bought the house with. He should have it in his files. She called him up, and his response was, why are you bothering with me with this? This isn't my problem. This is your problem. And he hung up on her. And so you could go after the attorney, right? So I said, you know what? You need to hire an attorney to sue this guy then. Because he's not there, you know, he has an obligation to provide the paperwork for you, and that you paid him for title insurance. If he didn't get that title insurance, you need to sue him. So she tried getting attorneys, but no other attorney would sue him. You know why? Because he's now a New Jersey Superior Court Justice. So this is what happens when people don't do what they're supposed to do, when they don't stick to those standards and nobody's there to enforce it because they may be of your same political party or whatever. But the thing is, when you do that, it erodes at our overall expectations of justice and society, and how things should be. And unfortunately, that has been going on for too many years right now, and it's only escalating and getting worse, and people trying to justify it with excuses of why it should be justified that they're allowed to do it. It's putting us in a bad situation. So even though they have Hippocratic oaths and codes of professional responsibility, we as realtors, we have our Realtors Code of Ethics. And they do actively go after people who you file a complaint against another agent. So we monitor our own to keep their ethical standards up within our industry. But the public could also file complaints with the Realtors Association or with the Real Estate Commission. Okay. So the Realtors Association adopted its own code of ethics in 1913. You guys recall when real estate licensing was required in New Jersey?
1890?
No. It was 1920.
1921?
Yep, 1921. So for years before the state of New Jersey ever required licensing, the Realtors Organization already started. They saw that we had a need there for a code of ethics to start policing and monitoring those salespeople within our own industry, because they were getting a lot of these snake oil salespeople, you know, the bad ones that are just looking to line their own pockets and screw over anybody, because it's easy to get in the industry. So the licensing wasn't even required at the time. So they said, we need to set some sort of a standard here. And so they created their own code of ethics here in order to call yourself a realtor. And then they always pushed that people who are dealing with licensees or real estate agents should make sure that they are realtors, because licensing was not a factor back then. But so they said, make sure that your agent is a realtor. Not all agents are. They follow a higher code of ethics and standards. All right, so I got a bunch of other things on this slide here. This is not in the book. We're pretty much done with this chapter now. This is NAR, is their website for the public is realtor.com. But for us, they have realtor.org or nar.realtor will take you to the same spot. So if you click on that, it takes you here, nar.realtor. Okay. And this is all kinds of where you can take your Realtors Code of Ethics. There's all kinds of news and training and statistics and all kinds of marketing ideas and information, your membership things, like sometimes you could get discounts and savings on buying computers or cars and things like that, insurance, all kinds of stuff. You could get market research and statistics and stuff for different residential, commercial. You know, they have their political action committee where they do get involved in politics as well, because unfortunately politicians are corrupt and they'll vote whoever backs them and throws money to at them for their re-election campaigns, right? So they have their own political action committees here for that kind of stuff. There's all kinds of information here on this site that you could join, and you could see up here a host of information. And they do have a lot of professional training and designation classes you could take. You can also download that NAR mobile app. Okay. Let me see. I don't know if I got that downloaded on mine. I don't think I do. So let me scan that. There we go. I'll download that app myself. All right. But the let's see, we got the Realtors Code of Ethics class here. You got to take every 3 years. This thing gets updated regularly. So here's the 2024 Code of Ethics. You could download the PDF document and all that stuff. You could take the training class for free online. Okay, they update it every year because things change every year. You know, since 1913, we have technology and all kinds of other issues that come up. And there's the parts of the Code of Ethics is what you need to learn about. The preamble, what the duties to the clients and customers are, our duties to the public, our duties to other realtors. Okay, this is the training class that you usually get. So let me copy this latest link, and I'm going to put that there in the, whoop, I was actually showing you guys this. Sorry, I didn't change it yet. So you can download all these items and you can take the class here. This is the latest one. All right. They talk about the articles, the standards of practice. Okay. This is what the training class is about, to teach you about that and to go over it. So let's go back over here. Here's the one I posted from 2023. So I update this one regularly. Here, I'll even share it with you. I think you could have access to it without even logging in. So there you go. But let me update that there in the slideshow. Put that latest one there for 2024. And then we have the link to actually take it. Let's see. Realtor Associate, they're members of NAR, National Association of Real Estate Brokers, that's NAREB. That's the their members are called Realtists. That's the African American Association of Realtors. Here's the link to New Jersey NJ Realtor. Which takes you to New Jersey Realtors site that has all kinds of research and government affairs locally that are listed here. See, they have info about that updated exclusive buyer agency agreement form. You could visit the forms library and get that. They got something pretty cool here. They got all kinds of research and statistics and news, and you could also look up their legal library. This is actually a pretty cool feature here. And they also have the forms, the online form system, their digital contracts. We could get through them for it's part of our dues. It's included. It's free. They also include something, other tools which are on the slideshow, which I'm going to show you in a moment. But check this one out, the NAR Legal Library. This is a pretty cool one too. Let me log in there. So this legal resource library is pretty cool. You could ask all kinds of questions here, and their attorneys will answer it for you, provided you don't get too specific on certain things. But once an offer is accepted, no more showings. There's questions about that. Or what about prepaid rent, or the new law on sellers' disclosures about flood hazard? Let's see, what's that about? It seems Governor Murphy signed a law requiring a flood hazard seller disclosure to be signed before signing contracts for sale. The anomaly is that the state of New Jersey provides a copy of that disclosure, which is essentially the same seller disclosure provided by agents from NJ Realtors. this poses the question, is a complete seller's disclosure now mandatory? If mandatory, do agents use the state of New Jersey provided seller disclosure form? So let's see what they say. 4/1/24, so this was recently, just last month. This answer was amended to specify the new requirements apply to any person who rents or leases for a term of less than 1 month, of a term for at least 1 month. Commercial space or residential dwelling units other than dwelling units in a premises containing not more than 2 such units, or in an owner-occupied premises of not more than 3 dwelling units, or in hotels, motels, or other guests. So while the seller's property condition disclosure is not mandatory, it is entirely in New Jersey. In its entirety in New Jersey, beginning on March 20th, 2024, a new state law requires sellers and landlords to disclose knowledge of property history of flooding, flood risks, and location in a flood zone area. Additionally, the law requires landlords to notify tenants of the availability of insurance for renters through the National Flood Insurance Program. The required notification must be provided to a buyer or tenant before the prospective buyer or tenant becomes obligated under the sales contract of this lease. Look, there's been a lot of changes to the laws recently, and even though this book that we have right here is brand new, it's less than a year old. I foresee that another issue of this book is going to be coming out soon for all of these updates. Accordingly, beginning March 20th, 2024, every seller of real property must disclose specific flood risks in the property condition disclosure statement. Okay, let's click on that because this looks like it's a different one provided by the state rather than that one through the Realtors Association. So it looks like for when we sell and lease property, we have to use this mandatory form now. And it looks kind of similar to the one that we use, talks of questions about occupancy, the roof, attics, basements, crawl spaces. Remember, it's with structural items, additions, remodels, plumbing, water, sewage, heating and air conditioning system. Okay, this actually looks like the same thing without the Realtor Association branding, but this one's coming from the New Jersey Department of Consumer Affairs. I'm going to keep this up here and keep that as a link. Here, I'll share this one with you guys so you'll have it too. In chat window. And I will go also to update. I will update the one in our shared drive, the new class links file. There we go. I'm going to update this one to have that, let's see, seller property condition. Do I have something here? Here we go. Property condition question. Expected. What about the report? Nope, that's the only one. So I'm going to add in here state mandated property disclosure statement by owner. There you go. So I'll put that in there. And then I'll update this in the shared Google Drive as well. So we'll go to that shared Google Drive. Okay. Stuff here. Okay, hold on a second. Try to locate this. Shared documents, salesperson class. Slideshows and links used in class. Okay, let me delete and replace that new class links document in the shared drive. Okay, I just did that. Okay, it's all updated. And you know what? I'm actually going to also add, I'm going to download this form here. Even though it has the link, I'm also going to download this form. No, we'll just keep the link there. Let me download this. All right, so we also have see, so this database, if you come here and when you look to this legal library and peruse through these questions, sometimes you could see questions that other agents are asking, or you could ask your own and they'll get to and they'll answer them here. So this is a pretty neat tool, and service that doesn't cost us anything more. You must provide notice to prospective renters. What's that notice? Landlord flood disclosure notice, related forms. So a lot of new stuff, a lot of new disclosures that we have to do as well. Interesting. So this database you only get access to once you become a member of the Realtors Association. See, and you could ask questions. See, I know I asked a bunch of questions too, and I put them in there during class. I typed it in just to confirm what I already knew as answers on some of them, but I typed them in there to see if we could get official answers. So let's see some of the questions I've asked them several months ago. Answered. Security deposits returned with no forwarding address. What do you do with it? When somebody gives you security deposit, the landlord got to return it, except if there's damages, right? Other than wear and tear, normal wear and tear by occasional use, by ordinary use. But what if the tenant didn't leave a forwarding address? Where do you send it to? Well, it says, while we're not aware of a provision in New Jersey security law that addresses this situation specifically, it sets forth the following instructions when the last known address is unknown or available for purposes of returning a security deposit. When a lease is terminated due to domestic violence, if the last known address for the tenant is at the property where the tenant no longer resides, the landlord shall post notices at each of the exterior entrances of the property. If the tenant does not collect the security deposit within 30 days, it shall be redeposited or reinvested by the landlord in the same bank from which it was withdrawn. Wonder how you're going to do that. When a tenant is displaced due to fire, so this looks like it was updated. Oh, it was 2024. There you go. So they changed the answers around a little bit here, I guess. When a tenant is displaced due to fire, flood, contamination, or evacuation, the last known address for the property is no longer habitable, the landlord shall post notices at each of the exterior entrances. See, I would have figured that you would just mail it to the last known address because the tenant may have registered a forwarding address of where it should go, you know? But they're talking about posting notices or then depositing it back to the bank account where it originally came from. Interesting. And they got links here now to the DCA, that's the Department of Community Affairs website on these specific topics. Please note that transferring the security deposit funds to New Jersey Treasury Departments of unclaimed property is not addressed in the law. Okay, so they talk about sending it back. Well, that's some interesting stuff. Okay, so they posted some new info there that I didn't even see yet. Okay, so this database is actually pretty good. Gives you a lot of we asked a bunch of questions here. Let's see this one. This is a useful database. Can a child still be considered an adult if younger than 18 and married in New Jersey? All right. Well, the laws were changed in New Jersey that you, under no circumstances can you be married and be under the age of 18. This is partially because of a lot of immigration that we were seeing from countries where it's okay to marry an 8-year-old. So there's the advocates for children and against people against human trafficking or selling off your kids, because that could be a common thing in some cultures. They actually changed the law that in the past you could be married off as young as 16 with parental consent in New Jersey. Now that is, and even in our book here, you're considered an adult if under 18 and married, if you're married, but no longer, because you can't be under 18 and married in New Jersey. So that's the question that I posed here to them. And let's see their answer. This question falls outside the scope of the New Jersey Legal Resource Library, so they didn't want to touch it. Okay, so it said to protect children, advocacy groups were able to get legislation passed in New Jersey that forbids child marriages under age of 18, even with parental consent. But is there a situation in New Jersey where a child can be considered an adult, where contracts between them and an adult can be considered legally enforceable against the child, like it used to be with married children? Okay, so there are questions about this on exam, and I'm going to give you guidance on this when we get to this chapter 11, I believe this is, when we talked about contracts. But we got no help here from the New Jersey Legal Resource Library on that one. They kind of deferred away from that one. But I do have the answer for you for what you need to know for exams. So, all right, let's get away from this and go back to our slideshow. We have the Legal Resource Library. We have the Government Affairs, where you can see all kinds of legislative issues that New Jersey, the attorneys for the New Jersey Realtors Association got involved with. And they cover everything from dealing with real estate signage to where bus stops are located in front of people's houses or not, and requiring inspections and licensing to get sprinkler systems installed in your house, all kinds of stuff like that. Here's another free useful tool that's included in your Realtors membership. It's narrpr.com. You guys may want to download that, and they got all kinds of training here on their website, but it's also a mobile app that they have where you could get to it. All right. As well as that contract form systems, which is that, here's that domain name that I bought that points to their contract form system, which is, which leads you to njrealtor.com/zip forms. I just got this one. It's easier to get you there, njrforms.com. So NAR-RPR is a great tool. Got to use your login. All right. And so I got there. All right. So this is basically the tool for NAR-RPR. I just logged into it, where you could do some, there's several tools. Garden State MLS has a tool for all kinds of research and lead generation and stuff. I just took a class the other day. It's called Remind, and they have Remind Pro that's available to its members for no additional cost. It's actually a pretty cool tool. I just went over that presentation the other day with them. I'm going to be downloading that video once they make it available to us, and I'll share it with you guys on our page. But we also have this one, which is included in your realtor dues. It helps you do the CMAs or do some market research, not just for CMAs, but you could search areas and create reports for your clients. You want to find out about properties in the area. You can see what's available in the area. What's that? open. It was an open house, I'm guessing. Here's a new listing. $2 million. Jeez. New listing. $1 million. You got to be rich to live in New Jersey now, huh? So anyway, this is for the Edison area, 08820 zip code. But you could do research, find out information about properties. You could search different zip codes for information. You click on a particular property or stick in an address in here. It'll give you information about that property and then other ones around it in the neighborhood. Here, let's click on one here. Let's view the full details. They give you a RVM. That's an estimated valuation model. Tells you the percentage of market change, what's going on in the last couple of days, the price per square foot, what kind of zoning it is, what the square footage is, the lot size, estimated value versus the list prices. You could adjust information if it's wrong in the public record, or if they are missing it altogether like they were here. You could pull it into these other softwares. You can find other details from the tax records, public records. You could pull up the plat map, which is a map. Oh, no plat map for this one, I guess. The local schools. Phone number. Is that of the owner? The type of mortgage they got, when they took that mortgage loan out, their husband and wife. The loan amount was for $250,000. The due date, their payoff date is 2032. Their lender was from Discover Bank. You know, you could find out all kinds of details about a property like that. In the meantime, $250,000 loan, they're selling it now for $989,000. All right. Yeah, get it while it's good, right? And here's some designation courses that you could take, because NAR has all kinds of training classes available for people. Let me close out some of these forms here. We got a lot open. Real estate designation and certification classes that you could take that are NAR classes. Accredited buyer representative, although this one is kind of a niche they try to push. You can learn good about how to guide and work with buyers with taking this course. The only problem with it is that they push on you that you should only work with buyers and try to push that as your niche, that there's never a conflict of interest to you because you never act as a dual agent. I think that's kind of stupid, you know, because if you work as a dual agent, hey, you could get twice the commission in one deal. You could get it from the seller and the buyer, you know, so I think this is kind of dopey. But the accredited land consultant, learn about land sales. If you're serious about wanting to get into commercial real estate, you should aspire to achieve this designation, which has a performance goal that's required. Not that many agents have this, but the ones that do, you're the lead agent on these $100 million listings and such for these large commercial things. Like if General Motors wants to sell one of their plants or open a new one, you know. SIP, Certified International Property Specialist. They teach you about international property sales and the unique issues with that. Certified Property Manager, if you want to get involved in property management or brokerage management. Here's a good one for most of you guys that are going to be in residential real estate to try to get. But this one requires you to get some closings under your belt before you actually get it. But CRS agents typically close more deals than most agents out there, and they become a member of a referral network where you get leads directly to you, and you could refer out to other CRS agents. So that's a certified residential property specialist. That's a good one. Counselors of real estate, accredited appraiser. Here to learn more about green real estate and construction and features about the environmental building. GRI, this could actually replace taking the broker's course. They refer to it as an advanced degree in real estate, but I don't know. They touch a little bit on residential, commercial, qualifying buyers and stuff like that. This is about $1,000 course. Performance Network, that's not for you. Association certified, that's not for you. Appraisers. Here's one, seller's representative specialist. They also have a negotiation specialist. I took that one as well as this one. Here's one, Society of Industrial and Office Realtors. If you want to get involved in, once again, commercial real estate for industrial and office space. Dealing with seniors. This is actually a pretty good one. It's usually less than $100 or about 100 to 120 bucks to take this class. This class teaches you how to deal with seniors selling and relocating housing and their unique needs when they're retiring and downsizing. And so you're usually going to sell one house for them and help them buy another one. But you got to learn about their unique needs they may be retired, and how do you help them get qualified for loans and help them get stuff packed up. There's services out there and things that help them move. So you got to learn about the unique needs of those seniors. It's called SRES, the Senior Real Estate Specialist. It's an easy one to get. At Home with Diversity class you could take if you think you can make some money off of that, or just want to, I don't know, and get involved with the community. If you want to learn how to do those BPOs on the side, those broker price opinions, and make some money on the side, you could take this one. Oh, maybe you can't. They no longer offer this one, the BPO. But there's other places where you could take these classes and learn about BPOs. What about real estate teams? If you want to start your own real estate team within a brokerage, or see how they work, you could take this team specialist. Learn about social and digital media marketing for real estate. ePro teaches you all about all kinds of technology and how to integrate technology in your real estate business. How to look up financing and know about the different financing options for buyers. Learn about becoming an inside sales rep. Luxury home certification teaches you the unique ways to market and sell those very expensive, unique luxury homes. Become a military relocation specialist. Those families need to be relocated. Sometimes people join the military. There's ways that they could have their belongings transported through the military transports and stuff, and there's different financing that's available for the families and military personnel. They get their own loans and such that's available to them with no money down. And you could find out about how to deal with military families and helping them relocate, which they often move. So that's actually a pretty good one to get. Pricing strategy advisor, learn about doing CMAs and stuff like that. But remember, I also showed you that one from Ottawa, where you're taught this from appraisers here in New Jersey. But this one teaches you about creating CMAs, working with appraisers, guiding clients through the anxieties, yada, yada, yada. Okay. Real estate investing for working with investors. Here's that real estate negotiation specialist. This one's actually a 2-day class you could take. Or if you want to deal with resorts and second home properties, you could get this designation. Learn about short sales and foreclosures. You could take the SFR, or there's another one that's not offered by NAR. It's called the CDPE, the Certified Distressed Property Expert. Learn about smart home certifications and solutions. All right, so there's a lot of different training classes you could take, and NAR makes a lot of money off of us by selling them to us. And here's some more designation and training classes. Here's a list of a bunch of them. Actually, that's a lot of the ones that we just went over. That just gives further explanations on them. Okay, so here's that other one that I mentioned on the side. So you can take this one through NAR, the short sale foreclosures, learn about them, or you could take this one, the certified distressed property expert. Here's one that they didn't have on the list. Here's the Ottawa one I told you about, learning about how to value properties. But here's a great one, learning about dealing with new construction. A lot of agents don't even think about partnering with builders and getting all those new construction listings, or they don't know the first thing about how to do it or how to even speak to a builder with any bit of knowledge. Here's a link that takes you to this, but on the next slide, I got a video here from this lady. She explains all about this. I actually have these certifications too. I took these classes years ago when they sent you a book and DVDs. Now it's streaming online and you take them online at your own pace. So I'm going to let her explain how these courses work. It's actually a pretty good one. And you could take the course with them. And if you're not satisfied with it, they give you your money back. So that's pretty cool too. So here, let me show you this one. You can watch it. We're back on the slideshow, right? Yeah. Oh, by the way, let me throw out the beginning of class attendance poll, which I didn't do yet. So let's throw that out there. Okay, so I think this is the last slide of this chapter here. I don't know why this is down here in the bottom like this, the screenshot. What's going on there? It's weird. I can delete that though. There we go. Gone. That was weird. All right, so here we go.
Teresa Walsh, and I want to thank you for taking a few minutes with me to learn about our national designation training, residential construction certified and certified new home specialist. Now, I know you're here because you want to learn about new home sales, new home opportunities out there. Well, I'm excited to tell you that our training is going to not only open your eyes to the opportunities in there in your market area, we're going to teach you how to do the business right. Because you know what? You don't get a second chance to make that first impression. One way you could get into the new homes arena is builder representation. We're going to teach you how to identify these small, medium-sized builders, how to sell your services to the builders, and most importantly, be a success. So for example, if you find one of these small, medium-sized builders, they have 25, 35 home sites, you know you have 25, 35 paychecks coming your way. You can't do that in resale. Another massive opportunity in new homes is new home buyer representation. It's interesting. I talk to a lot of real estate professionals. We attend these national real estate conventions, and it doesn't occur to the majority of real estate professionals to market themselves as a new home buyer representative. Let's capture these buyers before they go to the builders. Be known as the go-to agent in new home sales. You can't sell a buyer what you're comfortable selling. You have to sell that buyer what's right for them. So many agents steer buyers to resale because they're not comfortable talking new homes. They don't want to wait for their commission. But again, it's all about building that pipeline, creating your referral business. Because when you can demonstrate value to your buyers, you're going to get loyalty. They're going to tell their friends, and away you go, building a name for yourself and your market as the go-to agent for new homes. And one last massive opportunity is infill construction. This is tear down, rebuild opportunities. Investors are looking to invest their money in these projects. We're going to teach you how to identify the opportunities, how to package these deals, and participate in the success of these projects. So I've shared a few things with you today. I'm super excited to tell you that our training is all online. So it's available whenever you are. You create a username and password, log in whenever you want. If it's 20 minutes today, an hour next week. But when you're done with those full 22 hours of training, you've earned 2 national designations, residential construction certified, which teach you all the parts and pieces of a home from the ground up. We're in an HGTV world. You need to understand the product that you're selling. Certified New Home Specialist is going to share some of the ideas I shared with you today and then some. We had a national organization do an independent study, and they found that agents that have our national Certified New Home Specialist designation on average earn $53,000 more per year. You have nothing to lose. We have a full 90-day money-back guarantee. That means go through the full 22 hours of training. If you are not thrilled, you don't feel you're going to be able to go out there, make it happen, give us a call. We will give you a full refund. So I want to thank you again for spending a few minutes with me today. And I hope that you're going to look at investing in your future and taking new home sales and making it a part of your real estate career. Thank you again so much, and I wish you all the best.
All right, so that was that's actually a pretty cool training, and they actually have some additional training types of training. If you click on the link to go to their website, you could see that they have additional types of training there too. They have that certified new home specialist, residential construction certified, like she just explained. They have that you have 2 years access to the course to complete it. Not that it should take you that long. They give you 90 days money back guarantee. So you got the new home specialists. They teach you about all the different parts of the home. The residential construction certified. What is this one? Introducing our new powerful remodeled cost estimator. Okay, so they give you other kinds of tools as well, and marketing ideas and stuff. Where's the other classes they have though? Okay, choose your training package. I think that's it. New home training specialist, new home specialist training and package, residential remodeling suite. Okay, here's one with 3 of them. It has the residential remodeling specialist as well. Yeah, when I bought these years ago, I paid a couple grand for them. So the prices on this went down quite a bit though. And remember, this stuff is tax deductible. Let me see. Residential certified. What does this one have extra? Certified residential to lifetime access. Okay, that's why. All right. Anyway, I'm not selling you on anything. I just wanted to show you that those are pretty good courses that you can take. But that's it, and that completes chapter 3. So what we're going to do is the key terms to review so that we could finish up with chapter 3 right now. There are 3 key terms to review for this chapter. So let's dive right into those key terms to review as I close out the many, many windows I opened up during this chapter. That was very long and covered a lot of information. Okay, so save, close, update that changes in the slideshow to the shared Google Drive. This is chapter 3, so delete that and replace chapter 3. All right, now we can get started and do the key terms to review. Are you guys ready? The way that this works, once again, I read the answer on the right-hand side. You guys are going to shout out what you think is the correct corresponding answer to it on the left-hand side of the page. There's no penalties for wrong answers, so shout them out as you got them. Are you ready? Are you ready? Okay. So regulations prohibiting price fixing.
Antitrust laws.
2 is A, antitrust laws, correct. Principal who engages an agent. The principal who engages an agent.
Client.
It is the client. 6 is B. Agent who takes a buyer as the principal.
The broker,
Uh,
buyer's broker,
buyer's broker, 5 is C. Person authorized by another to act under a power of attorney,
attorney in fact,
when in fact they're not an attorney. That is correct. So 3 is D. A third person in a transaction, not the principal.
the customer,
They're not the principal, they're not your client or customer. 9 is E, as in Edward. Written explanation of business relationships. What do we call that?
consumer information statement,
The CIS form. Up. 8 is F. Broker's usual compensation.
commission,
That's your commission. 7 is G. One who is authorized to act for another in a real estate transaction and receive compensation.
the agent,
They have it listed as an agent. 1 is H. One authorized to act for another. Broker. 4 is I. Okay. Now, sometimes the question comes in about, can't that be reversed? One authorized to act for another, wouldn't that be an agent? And the one who's authorized to act for another in a real estate transaction and receive compensation, wouldn't that one be the broker? Yeah, I would probably agree with that, even though that's not listed as the answer here in the book. One authorized to act for another would be an agent. And one who's authorized to act for another in a real estate transaction and receive compensation, I think the broker would probably be a better suited answer there. So if you want to, what I did.
would the agent work for another being the broker?
What's that?
Would the agent be the one who's authorized to act for another, being that they're authorized to act for the broker?
Yeah. You're authorized to act for another in a real estate transaction and receive compensation. But remember, agent, you could be the buyer's agent, seller's agent, disclosed dual agent, and all that. But you could also the types of agent, you have general agent and special agents too. And an agent is somebody who has they're authorized under a power of attorney or other document to act on someone else's behalf. So this is
But I guess my question,
it's not so clear cut of an explanation for us to come up with such a positive, I'm certain this one's the answer on it. My point is either one of them could be the answer depending on how you think it through. So what I did here is I just pretty much did that for those two answers. I said it could be either one, basically. You could reverse it too, because of that.
That's good.
Those
hours are good.
Yeah, because you
so
could.
I guess I question, because it says we learned earlier that an agent is not authorized to do this work without being under a broker.
Correct. But your broker is an agent too, aren't they?
Right. But they're authorized, they're not.
You know what I'm saying? We're just looking at the word agent though, So it depends on how you're coming at this and thinking about it, because this is just a key term and we got a definition we're trying to match it up against, and they're not so specific with all the details on it. So we got to do our best to try to answer it. And based on what the information that they provided, it could go either way. All right. But anyway, this is just a review to try to get that conversation going. And because you're having an intelligent conversation back and forth like this, that's good for your learning, that you're grasping it. On exams, it's not going to be this far-fetched that you got to try to really figure out what the hell it is that they're trying to, what the message is they're trying to convey to you.
Yeah, I want, like, would they be so vague on the exam?
Some of their questions, actually their questions tend to be long-winded. So you'll probably get way more information than this. But they're not always as clear either. If you go to that PSI website and you look at some of their practice quizzes, you'll see what I mean, how they word questions.
Okay.
All right, let's look at just study it and you'll be fine. Don't get nervous. Just study it and do these reviews. And you seem pretty positive in it, and you're doing the right thing. You're doing the thought process of what we learned, and it seems like you're paying attention and all. So that's a good thing. I don't think you're gonna have a problem. Okay, so don't sweat it. Okay, let's do key terms 2. Revealing to another any pertinent information.
Disclosure.
Yes, 2 is A. A salesperson whose broker pays Social Security, regulates their hours, etc.
Employee.
4 is B. They are an employee if they're paying their Social Security and regulating their hours. 4 is B, as in boy. Person who enjoys the trust of another to act in the person's best interests. This is
A fiduciary.
They worded it kind of backwards. So pay attention to this for a second. A fiduciary is the one who owes you those fiduciary duties. The way that this is worded is person who enjoys that trust and confidence to act in the person's best interest.
A general agent.
This is worded so backwards. It's actually the principal. See, the principal is the person.
Oh, the person who enjoys.
Yeah, it's really weirdly worded. It is really weirdly worded. 9 is C. But this is why I like doing these key terms, because it really gets you thinking about these things, and then gets the conversation going. But at least either way, it gets you active in with the argument from the point of the knowledge that you just learned. So this is why I like doing these, because it try to keeps you sharp. Agency, even though some of these terms are kind of wonky. Agency representing both the seller and the buyer.
Dual agency.
Disclosed dual agency is what they're looking for here. So 1 is D. A party who represents another in a fiduciary relationship. You know that one.
I guess that's the fiduciary.
You guessed right. 5 is F. Intentional misleading of another who is thereby harmed.
Fraud.
That's fraud. That's fraud. It's outright fraud. 7 is F. A special relationship of trust and confidence between a principal and an agent. What do we call that? Special
That's
relationship.
the fiduciary relationship.
It would be. 6 is G. One who is empowered to act for a wide range of actions.
General agent.
A general agent. Yeah, they could do more than a special agent can. They could legally bind their clients to contracts, right? 8 is H. Brokers taking both parties as the principal.
That's dual agency.
It's just simply referred to as dual agency. 3 is I. Correct. Actually, there's 4 key terms to review. They added another one on the other page. Sorry about that. Okay, so 3, key terms 3. One who facilitates a transaction without functioning as an agent. Well, if you're not functioning as an agent, let's just stop right there. What are the ways to work? What were you saying?
Transaction broker.
It's a transaction broker. Yep. 16 is A. One authorized. See, if you ask yourself a question about the question, you'll be able, a lot of times it'll just pop up in your head too. So you don't even need to look at the terms. You could probably get it. One authorized to act for another in a specific transaction. You're authorized to act in one capacity only. That's the way we worded it. You cannot legally bind your clients to a contract when you work this way.
Especially,
Special agent, correct. That's 14 is B. Illegal sharing of a commission with a seller,
a kickback,
or anyone for that matter, it would be a kickback, correct. 2 is C. You know, everybody else can help her out here too, you know.
I keep forgetting I'm on mute.
Rules governing conduct of agents.
law of agency,
4 is D, laws of agency, law of agency. Agreement between the buyer and the seller on major points, on all the major points. When the parties are in agreement on all the major points of the transaction, what do we call that?
the meeting of the mind,
You've come to a meeting of the minds. So 6 is E. A written authorization allowing one person to act on behalf of another person.
Power of attorney.
It is a power of attorney. 8 is F. The one employing an agent, the client. What do we also call them?
the principal,
The principal. 9 is G. The one who brings about the sale, and therefore they're the one that's owed the commission. What do we
the
call them?
procuring clause,
The procuring cause. They procured the sale, so therefore they're the procuring cause and owed the commission. 10 is H. An agent of an agent is a
subagent,
subagent. There you go. Agent of an agent, subagent. 15 is I. Contract by which the owner retains a broker to find a buyer.
a listing agreement,
That would be a listing agreement. 5 is J. Harmless exaggeration as a salesmanship. Harmless exaggeration as salesmanship. You should do it. There's nothing wrong with it.
puffing,
Puffing, correct. Puffing. 11 is K. Puffing. Salesperson who sets their own hours, they pay their own estimated income taxes, etc.
independent contractor,
1 is L, an independent contractor. The problem not discoverable by an ordinary visual inspection.
latent defect,
A latent defect, which is a hidden defect. 3 is M. A person licensed to assist a real estate broker.
a salesperson,
Salesperson. 13 is N. Legislation requiring that the communities be alerted to the presence of convicted sex offenders in the area.
Megan's Law.
7 is O, Megan's Law. One who is qualified and prepared to purchase, we refer to them as a
Ready and willing, able buyer.
ready, willing, and able buyer. 12 is P. Okay, turn to page 62. We got one more here, but before we get started, I'm going to have you make some notations in the definitions on the right side. Next to letter C at the end of the line, I want you to write NAR, N-A-R. Next to letter C at the end of the line, write NAR, for National Association of Realtors. Then next to letter G, or just above G, I want you to cross out the first word there that says fraud. It says fraud committed by someone who should have known better. Cross out the word fraud and squeeze in there in your smallest handwriting, unintentional misrepresentation. I don't like the fact that the book tries to define a word by using the same word. And it's not always accurate in the way that they describe it here. Unintentional misrepresentation. And when you're done with that, the very next line, letter H, cross out the word fraud again and write misrepresentation there in its place. Everybody good?
Yes,
All right. Unintentional deception committed in ignorance.
innocent misrepresentation.
6 is A. Don't sound too innocent when you put it like that. You're ignorant, right? 6 is A. Real estate equivalent of malpractice coverage.
Errors in commission insurance.
E and O. The 3 is B, correct. Member of a private national organization, NAR.
Realtor.
10 is C, Realtor is the member. Statewide group of real estate licensees who choose to join. Not that you got much of a choice.
New Jersey Realtors.
New Jersey Realtors, 9 is D. A designation awarded for advanced study.
Graduate Realtor Institute.
Yep. 5 is E. 5 is E. Problem when serving best interest of both the client and oneself.
Conflict of interest.
2 is F. Unintentional misrepresentation committed by someone who should have known better.
Negligent misrepresentation.
8 is G, negligence. Yep. Intentional misrepresentation.
Fraudulent misrepresentation.
4 is H, fraud. Competence normally expected.
Standard of care.
That is your standard of care. 11 is I. Standards of conduct adopted by realtors.
Code of ethics.
That's your realtor's code of ethics. 1 is J. And a private nationwide organization of brokers and salespersons.
National
National.
Socialist.
Yeah, it's NAR, National Association of Realtors. 7 is K. And on that note, we concluded chapter 3 finally. So let me